Hello everyone, we are on chapter 9 and we are on paragraph 27, so let's get started. A superficial judgment might raise the following objection to these arguments. How can an action be individually made to fit the special case and the special situation and yet at the same time be determined by intuition in a purely ideal way? This objection rests upon a confusion of the moral motive with the perceptible content of an action. The latter may be a motive, and actually is one in the case of the progress of civilization, or when we act from egoism, and so forth. But in an action based on pure moral intuition, it is not the motive. Of course, my eye takes notice of these perceptual contents, but it does not allow itself to be determined by them. The content is used only to construct a cognitive concept, but the corresponding moral concept is not derived by the eye from the object. The cognitive concept of a given situation facing me is at the same time a moral concept, only if I take the standpoint of a particular moral principle. If I were to base my conduct only on the general principle of the development of civilization, then my way through life would be tied down to a fixed route. From every occurrence which I perceive and which concerns me, there springs at the same time a moral duty, namely, to do my little bit towards seeing that this occurrence is made to serve the development of civilization. In addition to the concept which reveals to me the connections of events or objects according to the laws of nature, there is also a moral label attached to them, which for me, as a moral person, gives ethical directions as to how I have to conduct myself. Such a moral label is justified on its own ground. At a higher level, it coincides with the idea which reveals itself to me when I am faced with the concrete instance. And 27 is summarized as follows. A superficial judgment is how can an action be made to fit the special situation and still be determined by intuition in an ideal way. This objection confuses the moral motive with the perceptible content of an action. An action based on pure moral intuition is not the motive, as the motive is the pure moral intuition. So let's look at the question he asks. The question that is brought up as an objection to what he has been saying is how can an action be individually made to fit the special case and special situation and yet at the same time be determined by intuition in a purely ideal way. I mean, that question in itself just shows that the reader doesn't understand what he has been talking about. And hopefully you've been following what I've been saying, so you can probably start to see already how there are flaws in that question, because an action is produced when I have an intuition, and it is the intuition that is the motive. And as Steiner points out, this objection rests upon a confusion of the moral motive with the perceptible content of an action. So that's basically what he's saying in this paragraph. It's kind of long and whatnot, but that's basically the main point, is he's talking about this objection, and that's what he's going on. We're going to move on to paragraph 28 as well. Men vary greatly in their capacity for intuition. In one, ideas just bubble up. Another acquires them with much labor. The situations in which men live and which provide the scenes of their actions are no less varied. The conduct of a man will therefore depend on the manner in which his faculty of intuition works in a given situation. The sum of ideas which are effective in us, the concrete content of our intuitions, constitutes what is individual in us, notwithstanding the universality of the world of ideas. Insofar as this intuitive content applies to action, it constitutes the moral content of the individual. To let this content express itself in life is both the highest moral driving force and the highest motive a man can have, who sees that in this content all other moral principles are in the end united. We may call this point of view ethical individualism. And 28 is summarized as follows. Humans vary in their capacity for intuition. The conduct of humans depends on the manner in which their faculty of intuition works in a given situation. The moral content of the individual is how their intuitive content, that is, the world of ideas, is applied to action. This is known as ethical individualism. So Steiner's philosophy, he calls it ethical individualism, because basically everyone has a capacity for intuition, and some of us are obviously better at it than others. And he's basically saying the moral life of an individual is basically guided by how his intuitions lead to action. And so the highest level of moral life that a person can have is if they have their motives in life is to follow their intuitions. And so that's basically what he is talking about in this paragraph. Again, in this paragraph, he's just pointing out that the conduct of a man will therefore depend on the manner in which his faculty of intuition works in a given situation. And we all have different we all have different ideas in our heads, and so the sum of ideas which are effective in us, which is the concrete content of our intuitions, as Steiner says, constitutes what is individual in us, and this constitutes the moral life of an individual. So that's basically all he's pointing out in paragraph 28. Again, this as I mentioned earlier, following your intuition is the highest motive you can possibly have, and the highest driving force is that of pure thinking. So this philosophy is known as ethical individualism. So that's all we're going to cover for today. So if you have any questions or comments, just send me a message. Have a good day. Bye.